Hey everybody, Xeon over here from Nintendo Life, and today we're here to share with you our review of Capcom Fighting Collection on the Nintendo Switch. Now, this review was originally written by Tom Massey for NintendoLife.com, but was reworked into this video by me. Capcom was a king of the early arcade industry back in the 1980s, an innovator and game changer in the market. Its invention within the fighting game genre remains unsurpassed, and in turn, Capcom is holding on to a healthy back catalog of arcade games. Now, the company isn't new to releasing retro collections, with close to 30 different compilations across various platforms, but some of these distinctly vary in quality. Now, with newer hardware, there's a better chance that arcade games will be accurately preserved, and in a more streamlined format. And thankfully, even on Switch, that's exactly what the Capcom Fighting Collection offers. For some of you, this will be the Red Earth console release you've been waiting forever for. And for the rest of you, this will probably be the Darkstalkers Collection, with some other stuff thrown in for good measure. The Darkstalkers lineup spans all 5 arcade releases, even though the last 2 titles are mostly just modified versions of the third game, Vampire Savior. The horror-themed Darkstalkers was a head-turning fighter when it debuted in 1994, putting Capcom's CPS2 arcade system to the test with incredible animation and moody artistic backgrounds. Although the series didn't perform exactly up to expectations in the West, characters like Morgan, Felicia, and the gun-toting BB Hood have become firm fan favorites, making appearances in plenty of titles since the Darkstalkers series wrapped up in 1997. Which is the best of the Darkstalkers games is subjective. Some may prefer the simpler, more deliberate nature of Night Warriors, others the more furious nature of the sequels. Regardless though, this universal monster-inspired Japanese ghost-laden series is a thing to behold, bursting with visual personality, strategy, and atmosphere. If there's any downside, it's that Vampire Savior 1 and 2 are Japan only, and certain sections of text remain disappointingly untranslated. Now, for a lot of you out there, the console debut of the 1997 arcade title Red Earth will be the highlight of this collection. Sadly, the game didn't garner enough attention in arcades back in the day and never saw a sequel, and much of this is down to it being misunderstood. Red Earth is essentially Capcom's Dungeons & Dragons the fighting game, featuring a glorious fantasy setting and multiple endings. Quirks such as treasure, coins, super orbs, and food being spilled and collected mid-fight might not lend themselves well to serious competitive play, but they do make for an incredibly unique game. You can even earn experience points, bestowing new abilities on your character, and using the password system, you can continue to play using their leveled up state, which is made even easier with the new quick save option. With only 4 characters to choose from, you fight 8 bosses in the campaign. These range from the enormous horned Tyrannosaurus Rex, Hauser, to Kraken-esque monsters, dark wizards, sphinxes, and flying harpies. It's a graphical feast of sprite work, backgrounds, and overall presentation. It blends fantasy with technology, mythology with lore. Each of the bosses with their enormous health bars is a spectacular encounter. The only downside here is that with only 4 characters, it's a limited 2-player experience. Interestingly, bosses Hydron and Hauser were made playable in Capcom Fighting Evolution back in 2004, but sadly there's no way to use them in this game. Hyper Street Fighter 2 Anniversary Edition was the swan song for Capcom's CPS2 system, and the game was released in incredibly limited numbers in arcades after it made its debut on the PlayStation 2 and Xbox. This is a modified version of Hyper Street Fighter 2 Turbo. It allows the player to choose any version of any character from any Street Fighter 2 release. For competitive play, this is a dream come true. With a full roster of 16 World Warriors, it's a delight, and should be buzzing online for years to come. A word of warning though, this was a game made infamously difficult for its US version. The AI will rip your heart out, although you can adjust both region and arcade difficulty settings from the game selection menu. And if you're like me, there's a good chance you'll want to. Then we have Super Puzzle Fighter 2, which is the only non-fighting game in the collection. This is more of a cross between Puyo Puyo and Capcom's own Panikis, a Tetris-style puzzle game where you combat opponents by arranging and destroying colored blocks falling into an empty grid. And it's hugely entertaining thanks to its system of combining colored gems into large blocks and then waiting to strategically plant a crash gem to detonate them, littering your opponent's screen with junk. All of this is accompanied by a chibi set of Street Fighter characters comically interpreting your successes and failings in the center of the screen. It's presented beautifully and offers a fun puzzle diversion for 1 or 2 players. And then we have Super Gem Fighter Mini Mix, or Pocket Fighter as it's known in some instances. This one rethinks the fighting game formula with a dramatic makeover. Utilizing Puzzle Fighter's chibi characters and their gem-based antics, it's one of the most aesthetically pleasing Capcom titles out there, and that's saying a lot. It's a dangerously cute extravaganza featuring more on-the-fly costume changes than any game ever made. In addition to 6 strong Street Fighter favorites, Morgan, Felicia, and Senko of Darkstalkers and Tessa from Red Earth are included for good measure, as well as Dan and Akuma from Street Fighter as secret combatants. It's a game that might resemble a super deformed Street Fighter 2, but it doesn't really play much like one. Yeah, you've got fireballs and dragon punches, but you'll also find Red Earth's treasure and elemental orbs. Plus, there are colored gems that can be collected to initiate mega crushes and mighty combo supers. It's fast, furious, and charming like few others, and has plenty of original mechanics. And if you ever wanted to see Chun-Li fire a rocket launcher as Jill Valentine, well, now's your chance. Finally, Cyberbots takes the mech theme of 1994's Armored Warriors, which was a side-scrolling arcade beat-em-up from Capcom, and converts that art style into a one-on-one fighting game. The character art is outstanding, and the whole package is visually impressive, featuring giant, heavy mechs with destructible parts slamming each other around the screen. It's the least deep of the collection, and that's despite the ability that you can mix and match your characters to different mechs and different appendages to try and squeeze out an advantage. It's more of a novelty these days in our opinion. Now, since these are the untouched arcade versions, this means that any characters and bonuses that were included in past compilation releases are excluded from this collection. But despite this, Capcom Fighting Collection is an excellent purist package for fighting game fans. Unlike the previous console releases, there are no missing animation frames and everything is one-to-one to its arcade counterpart. Presentation is excellent across the board with a simple but smart interface, direct and to the point. The menus are clean with a nice jazzy jam playing over colorfully cute wallpaper that wouldn't look amiss on your desktop. And you're given plenty of graphical settings to tinker around with as well. Every game defaults to the graphics filter Type D upon start. And this one is probably the best, closely echoing the default MAME CRT filter in quality. There aren't any options for screen edge curvature or corner distortion, but a variety of screen sizes are available, including correct 4:3 aspect ratios. There are plenty of different wallpapers you can choose from for each game to help give you that feeling of being in a 90s arcade, but if you find them to be a bit more distracting than anything, you can turn them off completely as well. Now, anyone who understands this will appreciate this, but when it comes to 2D gaming, lag is a death knell. Thankfully, it's relatively undetectable here, or at least too minute for us to really notice it in local play. Playing online may introduce a touch of lag, but Capcom's bespoke netcode works well to eliminate it. In our online testing, we barely noticed any issues unless we were having a seriously bad internet moment, and even then, these instances were rare. Capcom Fighting Collection does exactly what it sets out to do, and bar a few very minor presentational oversights, is a product with years of longevity. It's a shame to lose those bonus characters present in previous console releases, and you do need to consider what appeals to you when considering a purchase. If you want the best Darkstalkers collection, look no further. If you want to experience Red Earth and take it online, the time has finally arrived. Or for Street Fighter 2 diehards, Anniversary Edition's modernized netcode really lets you be a world warrior. Bar Red Earth, however, this isn't the first time these games have been re-released, and it surely won't be the last. A purchasing decision comes down to how many times you've bought these titles before, or whether or not you just want the most polished, accurate, easy access fighting game experience to date, either at home on your TV or portably on the go. If you fall into the latter category though, it's a no-brainer. We here at Nintendo Life give Capcom Fighting Collection on the Nintendo Switch an 8 out of 10. Now, for those of you that have made it to the end of the review, there are a few things that I specifically wanted to touch on beyond what Tom had said in his review here. Now, I'm not sure how much of this is really new content, but Capcom has also included a museum within the game that allows you to listen to the full soundtracks of each of the games on offer. And there's also an art gallery that lets you take a look at key art. There's a bunch of concept art. And then from the actual arcade releases themselves, there's instruction art that maybe would have gotten put inside of the actual arcade cabinet, like next to the screen or underneath the button overlay to show you moves for each character. I think arcade fans and even just die-hard Capcom fans will really enjoy that. And the other thing I really wanted to bring up that Tom did mention in his review is that the difficulty for some of these games is pretty insane. So if you go in and you're just completely getting demolished, really, just go ahead and just dial that difficulty back a bit. Because remember, these games were supposed to be quarter munchers. They were designed for the arcade, and these are their true versions. Thankfully, you do have those difficulty sliders, so when I played, I really dialed it back just to have some fun. And if you're playing online, I mean, sure, you can't really change the difficulty there, but if you're playing just in person with a friend, hopefully you'll both be on even footing. Now, if you'd like to learn more about the game, you can head over to nintendolife.com. We'll have a link in the description down below to Tom's full review, where he goes a little bit more in depth about each game. And you may, just maybe, will be able to find more info about other Capcom games, other fighting games, and more news about all Nintendo games at nintendolife.com. Feel free to let us know in the comments down below if you're planning on picking up this game yourself. I believe this one is actually getting a physical release, if memory serves me correct. Otherwise, you can find it digitally wherever you buy digital games, which is probably the eShop. And of course, if you enjoyed this video and you want to see more videos like this, then why don't you go ahead and re-release that arcade version of the subscribe button in its perfect form, and then ring that notification bell to be notified whenever we put up a new video. Thank you all so much for watching. Thank you to Tom for lending us your time and writing us this wonderful review. I'm Xeon from Nintendo Life. Stay safe out there, and we will see you all next time.
All right.